Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here with a hot take on the Secretary of Education, the potential one for Joe Biden. Meet Joe Biden's transgender Secretary of Education. Joe Biden taps Charlotte Clymer for U.S. Secretary of Education. Now, I don't care that Charlotte Clymer is transgender. My good friend Christian Baranek's trans. And she's been my friend for over 20 years. Trans people are people. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to tap somebody for Secretary of Education, shouldn't they have an educational background of some kind? Here's her Wikipedia entry. Charlotte Honora Elizabeth Clymer, Jesus, 4 names, is an American activist and writer. Apparently not a teacher. She is a former press secretary for Rapid Response at Human Rights Campaign, an American LGBTQ civil rights organization. She's political, but she is not educational. She was in the Army for 8 years, did a couple of tours, was part of the LGBTQ rights, feminism, and veterans affairs activism, published in Glamour, The Independent, NBC News, Vice, and the Huffington Post, appears as guest commentator on CBS News This Morning. But she is not an educator. Jill Biden's an educator. Jill Biden's qualified to be Secretary of Education. If Joe appointed her, I'd be like, well, okay. She's a teacher. In fact, I believe she has a PhD in education. Charlotte Clymer, well, she went to college. I don't know what her degree is. It doesn't say here, but even if it is an education, nothing in this entire description, she's never been a teacher. She's never even been a substitute teacher. I'm more qualified to be the Secretary of Education than her. It's no joke. Oh, she has, however, sued a restaurant for not letting her use a bathroom because she's trans. Because in D.C., that's illegal. Because, they're so woke in D.C. Crime runs rampant, but, don't worry, you could use the bathroom. When you're running away from your muggers on the street and you run into a club, catch your breath and hope they don't follow you in to stab you. Don't worry, the owners have to let you use the bathroom you want. This is a terrible choice. She has no educational background. She has no business being the Secretary of Education. Jill Biden would be a perfect choice. I'd have no problem with Jill Biden. Jill Biden. Did I say Joe? Jill Biden. She is only in there because she's a political choice. And she's trans. Let's be honest. It's so Joe Biden can say, well, come on, man. I have a transgender Secretary of Education. You can't yell at me for being transphobic. That's the only reason. It's a political chess piece. And she is an activist. It says so right in her description here. Activists are not known for their moderation. She has an agenda to push. And that agenda is going to include all sorts of woke nonsense that the female teachers in your area will love. Oh, I think I have a trans student in my class. Oh, really? Don't you teach 3rd grade? Yeah, but I think he's trans. It's a trend. They're caught up in it. They get these little brownie woke points for doing stuff for the LGBTQ community. When will the LGBTQ community realize that this is a very, very bad idea? That people will merely even pretend to be LGBTQ in order to gain those points? Right now, I think the LGBTQ community and women in general are so drunk with their own power because they finally come into their own politically that they just don't care. They just don't care. Oh no, we know. I'm so woke. I'm so wonderful. I couldn't possibly screw this up. It'll be 20 years. 20 years down the road, when they look at all this and they say, well, here's the problem. Oh, all these ridiculous woke policies, it screwed everybody up. Oh, yeah, I was from that time. I went to school during that era. Yeah, it really messed me up, man. I had a teacher, she'd push me, kept telling me I was a girl, and, I was confused, but, I was only in fourth grade, but she kept pushing and pushing me, and I wanted to please her, so, eventually I went along with it. It seemed to make everybody happy. That's what we're going to get. I mean, Joe Biden himself has already said he supports children being able to choose to have puberty blockers. It's monstrous. Children should not be able to choose that. It would be different if you could just take a puberty blocker and it would instantly work and not have any bad side effects, and you could instantly stop it in a few days. You'd go right back to the way you were. That would be a different story. That's simply not the case. You're messing with somebody's hormones, and there are side effects, and the long-term side effects aren't even known. So you're asking a child to make a decision that could literally screw them up for the rest of their life, mentally, emotionally, physically. Oh, but you're so woke and wonderful, you're going to let them do it. 20 years down the road, you'll get all the studies, and the studies will show this screwed people up. People did it because they thought it would please their parents or teachers. Kids are like that. They want to please authority figures, unless they're totally out of control. Once they're teenagers, then it'll be the opposite. You're going to raise a generation of students who know everything about gender and nothing about anything else, because gender and race will come before everything with these people. They're super woke, so all that stuff has to happen first. It's like that scene they keep showing, I forget, it's from some new show about a guy. He meets a group of people, they're all young, maybe in their 20s, and he sits down and they all introduce themselves and they're wacky. Oh, I'm trigender, I'm this, I'm that. And nobody even says it. I don't even think anybody says a name. I guess they say names too. It's just first off, if I sat down at that table, I'd be like, why are you telling me all this? What's your name? All I want to know is your name. I don't need your life story. I don't need all this personal information. But the reason they're telling you is because they want you to act a certain way and address them in a certain way. I mean, it's like sitting down and go, hi, I'm Lord Fauntleroy, and you will address me as Lord Faunt. If you do not, I will become very cross, and I will throw my drink. I mean, that's why they're doing it. They're doing it so they're basically warning you, this is how you better address me. I don't know. It was a TV show. Maybe it's not real life, but we're getting ever close to that. This ridiculous world of where nobody knows what they are and everybody's kind of transgender. I mean, on the one hand, you've got people from this community saying, well, we're all blank slates and we could be anything we want at any time. But, oh, wait, I have all these titles which you have to memorize and address me as such, or else you're a bigot. I mean, which is it? Either these are incredibly important to you, or you could change them at any moment, so why even memorize them at all? If I could just come in and say, well, I identify as a woman today. Excuse me, I need to go take a shower in the woman's locker room. If that's all kosher, then is woman on a locker room even make any sense? Why not just have a locker room and let everybody use it? Why all the separation? If everybody's a blank slate, why have men's and women's bathrooms? Why not just have one giant bathroom for everybody? Why even have bathroom stalls? Why not just have the toilets in a big empty room? Like Veterans Stadium back in the 70s. Oof. Yeah, I mean, you begin to see how the postmodernist agenda in this particular aspect of life starts to break everything down. If you're going to question gender, well, then there's all these other things connected to it that you could also question, in which case, then anything goes. Then how are we supposed to, if we have one giant bathroom for everybody, how are women supposed to be able to go to the bathroom? They can't. They wouldn't be able to. There would be guys in there constantly watching them. And then the guy would just say, if you called him out, oh, you're watching me while I'm going to the bathroom. Oh, I identify as a woman, so I'm just a woman watching you. There has to be some rules here. And look, I don't think it's really that hard to say, well, if you're going to be transgender, you have to make that decision when you're adult, and you have to go through a process where, you see someone who's a mental health expert, and they talk you through it, and they help you figure out your deal. Maybe you're trans, maybe you're this, maybe you're that. And then once you figure it out, okay, you commit to something, at least for a while. And then later, if that doesn't work out, maybe go back and you change again. But there should be some kind of process. It shouldn't be just, well, today I decided. Who are you? Who are you to decide? You're not a mental health expert. I just, look, it's nice that Biden wants to include woke people, I guess. I don't think he has any agenda other than, I just want to include a bunch of woke people so these woke idiots stop complaining. First off, that'll never happen. In fact, hiring someone like Charlotte is just going to mean more complaints. She'll probably complain after you give her the job that you still didn't do enough. And then she'll hire a bunch of woke idiots below her that they'll complain too, and it'll just be a total cluster F of people complaining and nothing getting done as they yell at the schools that they're patriarchal and they're this and that. These people are good at nothing but complaining. And I mean the woke, not transgender. There are plenty of transgender people that just want to live their lives. They just happen to want to live them a little differently than most. I could totally understand that. And I'm happy to let them lead their lives however they want if they are grown adults. When you're talking about kids, it's a little different. Okay? We don't let kids drive. We don't let kids drink. I don't think we should let kids take puberty blockers and totally throw their gender up in the air like it's nothing and change it. There should be a process. And it shouldn't really be totally official until they're an adult and they can really make that decision on their own after they have the tools. That's part of education. You give kids the tools to make decisions and do things. This obsession with gender and race and wokeness, you're just going to consume. It's like a black hole for everything. It's just going to consume all of education. And you're going to just raise a bunch of gender study woke idiots who have no skills whatsoever. Their skill will be complaining.